Welcome to the Nerd Party.
A kiss on the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Missing Frames. This is the podcast where we watch all the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives. I'm your host, Shawn Eastridge. We're hanging out on the Nerd Party Network, a collection of podcasts dedicated to all things entertainment. Check us out at thenerdparty.com and make sure to follow us at Join Nerd Party on Twitter. I am not calling it X. Thank you very much. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Nerd Party. And my guest today is one who has not been on for a while. Again, as we were discussing before the recording, this is my fault because I'm a disorganized podcast producer and just a failure of a human being in general. But that's why I'm having Carley Cooper on to basically elevate me to her level and make me a better person all around. So welcome back, Carley.
Well, thank you. And I mean, I understand if you had me on all the time, the success of your podcast would be maybe just a little too much for you to handle.
Yes. My fragile ego would not be able to handle the possibility of like, is she making me better? I don't want to believe that it's just something outside of myself. I think that's good, though. I think that's good. I think it makes me confident and egotistical and maybe a bad person. But otherwise, it's good. But we took a break from, you really are. You're the Marilyn Monroe expert, certainly of this podcast sphere. You are Missing Frames, Marilyn Monroe, scholar, expert extraordinaire.
Yes.
And we took a little break. Our last movie, which I think was a year or two ago, we did Tootsie, which is a beloved comedy the world over, considered one of the finest comedies of all time. But that was kind of a skew away from the Marilyn Monroe movies.
And also we did, because part of, I think, why we did Tootsie is because we did Some Like It Hot, and those are both in contention as being like the funniest comedies of all time.
Yes, absolutely. So we kind of decided, we're like, all right, let's see what Tootsie's all about. And we enjoyed it, but
I enjoyed it, but I thought that Some Like It Hot was better.
Totally agree. But now we're bringing it back to Monroe. And this is another film. Again, I'm the one being schooled here. I haven't seen before this podcast. I had not seen any Marilyn Monroe movies.
I know, and that's just shocking because what a cinephile you are. You would
truly shameful, like just
a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to say that, so I'm glad you said that.
I will take all the pot shots at myself that are necessary. I need to be brought down a peg or two. I think Carley, you are the reason people are tuning in right now.
I think so. You know, I didn't want to say it, but somebody had to.
I think that just speaks to how humble and truly well-rounded I am as a human being.
Humble king over there. Just.
So what's the movie we're watching today, Carley?
Gentlemen prefer blondes.
Wow. I don't know why I did that. It just felt right.
Yeah, that works. No.
I feel like I'm familiar enough with Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend to feel like my weird sound effects might be in the range of this movie and the vibe it's going for, but also I've never seen it, so I could be completely wrong.
It is. I absolutely love this movie. Again, another like funny one for it's like a comedy, but it's also, it's like a rom-com. I wouldn't say it's as campy and silly, of course, as Some Like It Hot. There's no cross-dressing.
Well, there might be.
No.
Well, I was going to say, don't break my heart. Maybe let me find out for myself.
Yeah.
But I prefer for you to tell me, because if I go into this thinking there's cross-dressing, after we've done Some Like It Hot, we've done Tootsie. And if I went into this, I would have felt really disappointed not knowing.
There are a bit of, I don't want to say cross-dressing, but there's definitely some costuming.
There's some shenanigans happening.
Some shenanigans with some costuming.
Okay,
yes,
good. I'm glad to hear that. All right.
Yeah.
So you love this movie, I guess we've kind of discussed as far as your Marilyn Monroe rankings and favorites. And the ones that you've introduced to me, again, Some Like It Hot and The 7-Year Itch was the other one, which
Yes.
included the famous shot of the dress,
Yes.
her standing over the grate and the dress blowing in the wind.
Yes.
And then Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Where would you put this in Monroe's, I guess, in her filmography? Where does it rank for you? But also give me a little bit of detail, if you have it, about where she was in her career at this point.
Well, so this was in 1953. So
Good
I'm
year.
still, yeah, great year, great year. I think this is kind of like one of her, at the time, maybe like the biggest movie coming out for, or like, and she's with Jane Russell in this film, who's also phenomenal. And I know
Right.
at the time Marilyn wasn't making the same amount of money as Jane was on this film.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, so she wasn't at her peak yet, really. Like she was still kind of a up and comer. But in this, I mean, and not like, I don't want to say an up and comer because she was like known at the times, but she wasn't as big of a, like, the star, obviously, if
Sure.
she wasn't making as much money as Jane was.
Right. That makes sense.
But she is phenomenal in this. Like, this isn't like in Some Like It Hot where she's forgetting her lines, and
Right.
like you can see that. I mean, also just her, and this is an unfortunate thing to talk about, but we talked about it in Some Like It Hot. Like, her figure was at times, she got some flack for that, and
Right.
on the film promotional material and stuff, they kind of like photoshopped some of her physique because they said
I
she was a little
remember.
heavier.
I remember
Yeah,
discussing that. Yeah.
right.
So this is a little bit more like before kind of the sort of the dark side of Hollywood had kind of reared its
Yeah,
ugly
maybe
head.
she's still got her rose-colored glasses on a little bit.
Right,
And I
gotcha.
think that really reads in this performance as well. I mean, she's fantastic and just electric and magnetic and everything she does, in my opinion at least, and that's probably why she's been able to transcend, like, generations, and she's still so beloved.
Despite everything happening behind the scenes, she's amazing in Some Like It Hot. Like, when she needed to be, she was on point.
She
And
is one of those people, and we talked about it in Some Like It Hot, where no matter what she does, you just can't take your eyes off of her. She's so, like, captivating.
Right.
Her mannerisms, her facial expressions, her voice, like, everything she does, she's so, like, from the top of her head to the tips of her toes, like, she's so aware of her body, or maybe she's not. It's just an effortless thing for her,
Yeah, it's
She's just
very,
got,
very natural and it's like it's clear why she was a movie star.
yes,
And
and
it's
she's
evident.
also, like we've said before, she's so unbelievably, like, sexy, and she's, like, treated as just a sex object.
Right.
But her mannerisms, she is so endearing and charming and sweet. Like,
Yes.
it comes across in a way that, like, you don't look at her and think like, oh, this floozy, or she's like, and even when she is kind of like sexing it up a little bit, it's still so charming.
Well, there's like a girl next door quality to it, which is crazy because Marilyn Monroe is such the epitome of like glamour and beauty, but she has a down to earth, grounded quality that makes her endearing. Like, they're
And also she's got these wants and hopes that I feel like everybody, like, wants, and makes her so relatable. Like, she just, like, it seems on all of her performances, I mean, she truly seems so earnest in the motivation she has throughout, like,
right.
it doesn't feel like she's putting something on, like, and I feel that's why people, like, just still love her so much, because you can go back and watch all these films and it doesn't feel like she's acting, like,
Yes.
she's just, it's so good. I love watching her, and this is one of those movies, like when we watched The 7-Year Itch, you just get the technicolor, like those bright blue eyes and that bold red lip, and like, I love that about her. She has just this classic, like, absolutely doll-like look, and you get that 100% in this movie, 10,000% in this movie. The outfits, the costumes, I mean, there's this amazing scene that you'll see when her and Jane Russell like walk into dinner one night, and I'm sure you've seen like memes and like whatever, like it's always these two girls walking in and everyone just like stop and staring at them.
Right.
I mean, just absolutely stunning. The makeup, the hair, everything. I love it.
Yes, and we're we've been, weirdly enough, not planned or anything, but we've been working our way backwards through her filmography in a way. Like Some Like It Hot was, that was obviously towards the end of her career. And then 7 Year Itch was also directed by Billy Wilder, and that was a few years before, in 1955. And now we're going back a couple years. And I was looking up Howard Hawks, who directed this, and he also
He's
had done
some cool stuff.
Yeah, like the original Scarface, Bringing Up
Mhm.
Baby, His Girl Friday.
He's
So
done some westerns.
yes, like Rio Bravo, things
He
like that.
also
So
did another film, one of Marilyn's earliest films, Monkey Business.
oh, right, okay. So is that
And
along?
that's in black and white.
Okay.
And that one's actually really funny. It's about a scientist that like I think I forget if he like puts like brain somebody's like he switches, it's like a parent trap, or not parent trap, sorry, Freaky Friday kind of thing, where he like
Okay.
switches places with a monkey or something. It's something along it's been forever since I watched that movie, but she plays the secretary or like the assistant to
Oh,
the
I was hoping
scientist.
she played the monkey. I was like,
Yeah.
man, she just has so much range. She can do anything.
But that was one of her earliest films, Monkey Business.
Gotcha.
I
Okay, so
think
they'd work
something about
together.
Eve was maybe her first one, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
I haven't seen.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
That is, that's
Yeah,
a
I know.
fantastic movie.
Put it on our list. And I
Yeah.
don't think I've seen, just looking at Howard Hawks's films, I haven't seen, I don't think I've seen any of these. So this will be a first for me as far as his filmography. Even though I recognize the names of these films, I haven't seen any of them. So
Okay,
this
yeah.
will
And
be.
it's interesting because he seems to have done a lot of like romantic kind of comedy, like light comedy films, or maybe even like some romantic drama films, but he's
Yeah,
also
right.
done a lot of like action-y stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Scarface. It's just,
Yes.
I was looking through the stuff he's done, and it's like, this is, again, lots of variety. Very, very
But it
interesting.
also, I feel like when you watch this movie, you can totally see how maybe doing some of the actiony stuff like fits with some of the musical numbers that they have to do in this. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
how to film that and how to like to work around and stage all of that. Like it's so great. I could watch this movie, I mean, every weekend.
Oh, I'm
It's
excited.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's not as funny as Some Like It Hot, of course, because it's not as campy, but it's just a really fun story. There's a lot of shenanigans that go on in it, and Marilyn Monroe is just like, again, she hasn't become so jaded, or she's not being as
Right.
beaten down behind the scenes. She's still up, on the up and up. So
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
and
So
this is before she married Joe DiMaggio, I'm pretty sure.
oh yeah, and that was a pretty
Yeah, and
nasty relationship, wasn't it?
yeah, that was really rough.
Yeah.
So, so again, yeah, she's just kind of becoming this massive starlet, and it's just getting to watch this film. It's so good. She's fantastic. It makes me so sad that she didn't make as much money as Jane Russell in it either, because
Yeah, that is. I'm looking at the Wikipedia just at the top, and it says Monroe was paid her usual contract salary of $500 a week.
yeah.
I don't know how long this is in production, but obviously that's regardless not a lot of money, especially compared to Jane Russell, who it says earned $200,000. So it just speaks to your point. Like Marilyn Monroe had not reached the point where she was the star, but still seems very, very. They're both like. I mean, looking at the poster.
I mean, I could be wrong in this, but I feel like Marilyn's on screen more than Jane Russell is.
Right, right. It's just like I'm looking at the poster, and they're both like their names are the same exact size. They're both featured exactly the same on the poster. So
you know what though? Maybe I'm wrong in that, because they both have individual songs. They both have stuff that they do on their own. They both have their like own scenes. They're together on screen a lot. So I mean, maybe they are pretty equal the amount of screen time. But yeah, the Jane Russell was just a much bigger name at the time.
And it tracks too for Hollywood. And again, this is just really an excuse to bring it all back to Superman. But when Marlon Brando was in Superman, when they cast him, I don't remember what the payday was, but it was some like disgusting amount of money, like to get him to be in that movie. And
Sure.
Christopher Reeve, who plays Superman because he was an unknown and not a movie star, got, I think, like a fraction of whatever Marlon Brando made. Like Marlon Brando, it was like in the millions plus percentages of the box office, and Christopher Reeve maybe got like 200,000 like for two movies. They filmed two movies back to back, so it tracks, but it's always, even in retrospect, it's like, I kind of understand, but still it seems a little weird, little sketchy and unfair. But
yeah, I mean, and especially at that time, the way that the studio contracts worked and stuff. I mean, if your number comes in and you're all of a sudden the big ticket person and you're still on contract for whatever, they're not going to renegotiate your contract to let up.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's a good point.
You have no say in any of that, especially women at that time. They had no say in any of that.
Yeah, it's and I know, and you were kind of hinting at it, but there's definitely some interesting commentary in the film, and there's some stuff in Some Like It Hot. There's some stuff in 7 Year Itch, just kind of like gender roles and that kind of stuff, like commenting on like the particular time and what was in fashion and what wasn't in fashion, and men versus women.
What's interesting is I feel like a lot of the movies that Marilyn Monroe was in have a couple like undertones in there that are a little bit ahead of their time, and that as weird as this sounds, because as much as she was used and as horribly as she was treated behind the scenes, and as many people kind of treated her like a cash cow and she didn't matter, she was just a business,
right.
There's a lot of moments in her film that are like really pro like woman's perspective,
right,
which is interesting to me because her life was not that.
Yeah, it is funny how, and it's sad too, just the way. It's amazing that she was able to find a way to those projects so that she could portray that, and that was the primary way she was being seen and absorbed by the public,
through like the male fantasy, which is also an interesting dynamic.
It's true. You have to wonder, like, these are great filmmakers. Like Billy Wilder is a great filmmaker, and you want to believe they're not completely oblivious, but you also have to think, like you're saying, because of the time, there is more of a exploiting a beautiful woman and kind of treating her as the object versus maybe a more developed male character. And you certainly see that in like the 7 Year Itch, maybe a little bit more than Some Like It Hot. But she, I think, just through sheer force of personality and sincerity, adds depth maybe where there wasn't depth before. And it makes it feel all the more kind of revolutionary in a way. Because those movies, like just those two movies that I've seen, do feel very contemporary. They're very like in terms of their humor, but like you're saying, in terms of their commentary too.
Yeah, because it really, I mean, it doesn't like focus on that, and it's not something that it's like drilling down on and like, this is the point of the movie. But there are these moments in there where it's like,
interesting. For a movie made in 1960, or in this case, it's 1953, you're like, that's interesting that got through and it managed to get to the final cut.
What? The more films that I watch from this era, the more surprised I am with how kind of in the just film industry, how many times there's like a common trope of a woman being well aware that the man's only interest is, like for his personal gain or pleasure or whatever. And she's fully exploiting that. And the man is like a bumbling buffoon. And she is in full control, even though he seemed, it's actually interesting to see how often that comes up in film, especially from this era.
It was the power play for sure of like men versus women. Like, what do men want? What do women want? And like, you know, there's a lot of stuff where we can watch something, and particularly from this period where it's like, oh, this woman's being exploited and da-da-da. But there are also examples of like women kind of acknowledging and using the knowledge of like this man's head over heels desire to get what she wants or to kind of exert her
Right.
power. And it's not in a like not in a shallow way, but in a taking ownership kind of way, like
Yeah.
in a way that's kind of empowering, even if on paper it doesn't sound like that, if that makes sense.
And I feel like when you and I were just talking about Blonde, that
Yes.
maybe that's the intention
Blonde, the
of the
movie
film.
Andrew Dominic made with Ana
Yeah.
de Armas. Just to let our audience know, I like to keep them in the loop
Of course.
sometimes.
But I
Yes.
feel like maybe that's the intention they had with that film is it's like, oh, she's taking power, she's taking ownership or whatever, she's exploiting these men. But like I can't get behind that one. Like
Yeah. And we have, neither of us have seen it. We both know it's controversial, and we were talking about this before the show, but the feeling I got, and Andrew Dominic specifically referenced Gentlemen Prefer Blondes in an interview with somebody, and kind of referred to Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell. They're like, oh, they're sort of whores in that movie anyway, so whatever.
I feel like honestly, if that's your takeaway from that, you should never be allowed to make any subject matter regarding Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
Like
That's,
if that's
I think a
your
lot of
takeaway
people
from
agree with you.
watching this movie, no.
Yes.
One, you missed the point. Two, like you could shut the heck up. Like
Yeah.
I can't believe that he said that, and then someone was like, "Great, go direct a film about her life." No, like, are you
Right.
kidding me?
Yeah.
I guarantee you, this man would direct a thing about Anne Frank, about how she like enticed the Nazis.
Yeah.
Like, I don't. Are you
That's what I
kidding
think.
me?
I think a lot of people felt that. And we said this before, but just on the record, I like Andrew Dominic. I like the films I've seen. I haven't seen many. I have not seen Blonde, but
Is
based
he holding
on what
a gun to your head right now?
No,
What?
no, not at all. Look, I don't have much interest in watching Blonde. I think you have also expressed the same, especially as a
I
fan of
refuse
Marilyn
to.
Monroe.
Yeah, I refuse to.
It does sound like what they're
I don't know her personally. Obviously,
Right.
she died well before I was ever born. I never met this woman, of course, but I am such a fan of hers. Just knowing how she feels about herself and some of the stuff, like the interviews I've read with her, some of the stuff that's come out in like letters, which I also feel like I feel sometimes guilty for like reading some of this stuff because
Yeah.
she's been pretty open about saying like she doesn't want people to like poke around in her
Sure.
business
It's
or
hard. I
really.
mean, you naturally, as someone you admire and
Yeah.
are invested in learning about it,
But
you
that's
can't
why I
help it. Yeah.
refuse to watch that film because
Right.
just knowing what I do know about it, I feel like were she alive and saw that, I feel like it would really hurt her.
That's what my understanding is too. It's a shame. And I think what's been great about getting to do these episodes with you is that my introduction to Marilyn Monroe is the work itself.
Yeah.
And like
and that's what I want people to like always take away is just to like forget whatever stuff maybe happened that's horrible, or if you think she was just like over sexualizing and like
Right.
using her wiles to like forget that. Like watch some of her films. She's a brilliant actress, and
Yes,
she was
she
not
is.
appreciated as that in her time because of the view people had on her and because of the way the studios treated her. Like
Right.
so just take anything of you thinking she's trying to do something to get ahead out of that, because that was not the reality. And even if she did potentially do something to get ahead, I'm sorry, she was so horribly mistreated. I like good for her. Like use
Yes.
what you can with what you can, but like don't villainize her for anything.
Absolutely.
Like, and that to me is just so upsetting. And if you care at all about just like film history and the icons of the cinema and like people who have truly changed like the way that we think about filmmaking and the way that we film stuff or the way that we treat people, like I don't know how you can not appreciate her for everything that she's done and the work that she's put out, even under the horrible constraints that she was under. I mean, she had a miscarriage during the filming of the prince and the showgirl, and it's like
Right.
she's still like nobody gives her grace. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I
This is,
feel
I
like
mean,
the way that she,
Hollywood is so unforgiving even in this day and age, but
yeah,
just in this particular era, and especially with women, like, it just is like, just imagine the emotional turmoil and then
yeah,
still be kind of like being like, okay, now get over it and go perform in the
yeah.
scene,
And I
and
also,
still nailing it, like still
yeah.
nailing the performance.
But I also just, in the time that we're living in now, and with everything that we know now, and the Me Too movement and all of that stuff, I cannot believe that somebody put out that movie Blonde.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that to me, it's just like, what are we saying?
You want to believe there were good intentions. And
I
I
I
haven't seen
can't.
it, but I have no
But if
idea.
that was his takeaway from Gentlemen Prefer Blonde, that they're both basically whores, there are no good intentions behind what he did.
Fair. Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
can't. I cannot fathom how somebody would watch Gentlemen Prefer Blonde and take that away from what they're, especially, like I said, there's a line towards the end of the film which I think sums up the hypocrisy and the double standard of what men are allowed to expect from a woman at that time, and what women are allowed to want or hope for and expect out of a husband, and how unfair it is that it's perfectly fine for a man to have these expectations, but a woman's considered a whore. Like,
Right.
that's
Right.
wild.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. So I, I'm going to try to guess the plot
Okay.
of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. So there are two women. I know,
Yes.
and they're definitely not whores. I know that.
No.
So Jane
They are
Russell,
ladies, okay?
they're
Ladies.
lovely ladies,
Yeah.
upstanding ladies,
Elegant ladies.
elegant, and they're the best of friends. They are a team.
Yes.
They're a team. They're a power couple.
Yes.
They're not romantically, but like as friends, a
Yes.
platonic power couple. And they're just going through life, and they're starting to feel like, there's songs in it. I think it's a musical. It has to be because
It's a musical in the aspect that films at that time had musical numbers in them.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, because I guess Some Like It Hot kind of has musical numbers in it too, but it's not a musical.
A little bit. It's not. It's not the same as that. Like, that's them, like, her getting up on stage and singing, or stuff like that. Like, this has actual musical numbers in
Okay.
it, where people
Okay.
are dancing a little bit, and like doing stuff around, or somebody walking around and singing.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
I don't know if I would say that this movie is an outright musical.
Okay. So it's kind of a musical. So they sing and maybe they dance, and they decide that they have had enough of playing second fiddle to the men in their lives. So they decide to they scheme a little bit on how they can get the upper hand, how they can take control and be empower and embarrass some goofy guys who are head over heels, as they should be, and they're like, how can we embarrass these goobers and make them love us?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, maybe
That's what you're getting out of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
this is a very skewed and completely unaware attempt to guess what this movie
All right,
is
that's
about,
fair.
based on the poster, which
Yeah.
it looks like they are dancing, like
Mhm.
they're not showgirls, but like maybe they are, they're singing and dancing. There's the Eiffel Tower, so maybe this is taking place in Paris, and they they're they take over. There's a song and dance number in the Eiffel Tower, and maybe there's a fight scene, an action sequence that involves one of them hanging off the edge of the top of the Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
And,
Like King Kong style.
Yeah, it's King Kong style, and maybe it ends with like one of them has gotten a little too swept up in their romance, and she has to choose: do I save my best friend Marilyn Monroe, or the man that I think I love? And she has to pick, and then the other one plummets to their death, because Howard Hawks, he makes some action movies, so there may be There may be an action sequence or two in here involving the Eiffel Tower, maybe.
Okay, so I'm not going to tell you if you're right or wrong about
Please
any of that.
don't. I'm sure I'm right. I mean, I
will
have to
tell
be
you-
right.
I will tell you two things.
Okay.
Okay? The majority of this film takes place on a boat.
Oh wait,
Yep.
I don't see any boats in this poster. Hold on.
You won't.
I would have been very disappointed.
And the second thing is I honestly don't know why it's called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
Perfect. So I no longer know what to expect from this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I tried my best. But
Yeah.
either way, I'm about to find out what Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is in actuality all about. And then you and I will come back here and we'll have a long talk about how right I was with my plot description.
Well, and what's funny too, real quick, is in the context of that title, Marilyn Monroe was being paid less than Jane Russell, and Jane Russell is brunette, and Monroe is blonde.
Yeah, wait, on many levels, the title doesn't make sense. Okay.
I truly do not understand.
So I should not go into this movie expecting for gentlemen to prefer blondes in it.
If they were both blonde, I could see that, like that being the title, but because Jane Russell is a brunette in it, like
there's no sense. There's no sense being.
And maybe there is, and maybe when I watch it again this time, I'll like ponder that while I'm watching that and see if I can figure out like why that's the title.
But don't ponder it too much.
No. No. I'll pontificate.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll go and we'll watch and then we'll be back.
Lovely.
Now available to own on video cassette.
And we're back. Carly, I've now seen Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and I have to say, I'm glad I have.
Isn't it great?
It was a very delightful, fun movie. Marilyn Monroe was great. I loved her.
Fantastic.
Jane Russell is great, and she's the perfect foil because they're playing such different types of characters, almost like almost cliche type women, but they invest it with the humor and the humanity and the talent, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Oddly enough, I feel like I enjoyed the general narrative stuff more than the musical stuff. Like the musical stuff was oddly, you were right, it's in there, but it's weirdly like kind of like just chill is not the right word. It's very low key. It's like
it's like because it is, I guess, technically a musical, but even technically, I don't know if it quite qualifies as one because the songs don't do anything for the narrative, or you know what I mean? And I'm pretty certain that that's what quantifies a musical. I'm not a doctor. I don't know, but
yes, there are doctors who are professionals and understand the ins and outs of
music,
musicals.
You know. Yes. But it is based off of a musical production, and there were songs that were written specifically for the film. So perhaps in the theatrical, like the Broadway musical version of it makes more sense and has songs that does that for it. But this movie, that's what even half of the songs that are in there are performative for the characters, like they're doing shows and they're showgirls. So
exactly,
it doesn't really feel like a musical at that moment. It just feels. I mean. I don't know.
What it is. So here's what it is on a couple levels. So first of all, I didn't realize before I watched it because I didn't look into any of this. And thankfully, I mean, my guesses at the plot were, I think, pretty spot on. I 100% knew what this movie was about. Nailed it. And I think I didn't know it was a musical before that. This was adapted from Broadway musical, or
Yes.
maybe not Broadway, but a theatrical production. That I didn't know, and I don't know much, obviously, about anything, but especially not the musical version of this film. And I don't know. It almost feels like this movie is reluctantly a musical. Like they keep saying, "Oh, we have to put in a musical number because it's based on this theatrical production that has songs in it." But even like cinematography wise and direction wise, it's pretty like there aren't really any like I guess the biggest dance numbers in it are the one at the beginning with the two of them kind of singing and performing, doing their showgirl thing, and then diamonds are a girl's best friend. And there's kind of one in like earlier in the film where Jane Russell is dancing kind of while all these Olympic athletes kind of do their exercises around her. But
Right.
even that isn't choreographed in a way that feels musical. It's not really shot in a way that feels musical or like what you would expect. And it was almost like you said, like it doesn't necessarily, these are just sort of songs that are sort of thrown in for no real reason.
So it's really funny that you say that. And did you do any like production research on this
I've
at
done a
all?
little bit, but I want to hear
So,
you bring the trivia to the table.
well, so Howard Hawks did not want to do a musical. He was not there on the days that they
Right?
filmed. He didn't care. Like, and
Yes.
there I guess was,
That does read. Even though,
yes.
and he wasn't there, and apparently he left it to the choreographers to
Yeah,
kind
he's
of
like,
come up with.
I don't want to do this. Like, so I'm not going to.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Hey, all right.
Yeah.
I guess you
So
can do that
that's
when you're the
funny. But
director.
yeah, like one thing I will say is Jane Russell's great in it, but next to Marilyn Monroe, honestly, like Marilyn Monroe's mannerisms and her acting is so effortless and it really seems so like earnest. Whereas
Yes,
Jane Russell is clearly performing. And
I
even in the
agree. Yeah,
performances, she's like really performing. Whereas Marilyn is just the character. And like, I mean, if people didn't like, I mean, she wasn't well known at the time, of course, but like, if people didn't think that she was some kind of just huge talent after that, you know, like it's just she's phenomenal.
that's what. And I was thinking that the whole time, which was specifically about their paychecks, because I know we
Yes.
discussed like Marilyn Monroe had a contract that was kind of set in stone where she got
Mm-hmm.
$500 a week, whereas Jane Russell got $200,000 for the project. And
Right.
I mean, Monroe is easily, and this
The
is, I mean,
standout star.
yes, 100%. And it's not a knock against Jane Russell, but it is just kind of like it's definitely misbalanced in the
Yes.
way where Marilyn Monroe is always, whenever she's on screen, you're just completely drawn to
Glued to
her.
her. She is so unreasonably beautiful. Like it's just
But also like genuinely, like again, very funny, very natural.
yes,
And I
very
think
funny.
a lot of the criticism she got earlier in her career, that oh, she's kind of just like ditzy and a dumb blonde, but it's the performance is there. It's not like it's just like, oh, she accidentally gave a performance, but she's dumb and
No.
an idiot.
Like
Like the way she
that's
delivers her punchlines, the way
yes.
she kind of performs, and just her sense of like glamour and it's
Or
very, very, it's all there. So I
even
just think it's
like
interesting that people would bash on her for that.
that scene where she's saying goodbye to her fiance and she's singing to him, like it's the way that she looks at him and is like connecting with him, or like just the expression she has.
Yeah,
And
trying to convince him that she's like, no, 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 I love you
but
and
it
I'm
was
not going to do
so
anything.
like I don't know how that man like sat there with her.
Handled himself.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, because I was just the whole time I'm just like smiling watching her because
Yes.
she's so entertaining. She's just like she just lights up the screen and just it doesn't feel like she's acting. Like she really feels like that person.
That's another example too of like so that's a musical number and the direction is literally like it's just this one static shot of the two of them sitting in this chair
Yes.
pretty much the whole time. So nothing, again, the movie does not feel like when the musical numbers come on, it doesn't feel like you don't get that sense of energy and life.
Right.
However, because Marilyn Monroe is so good in that scene, it completely holds your attention.
Yes.
The irony is that the guy who plays her dude, which Gus, I think is the guy's name.
Gus. Yeah.
So Tommy Noonan, the actor, apparently made some comment about he didn't enjoy kissing her that sent Monroe into kind of like a fit, and she was really upset. And Jane Russell had to actually like go and talk to her and coax her out of her trailer to get her back. But
well,
yeah, I think Mr. Noonan is I don't know. I think maybe he was trying to play a little hard to get there because
maybe, because like I don't know, she was amazing. I love when they walked into that stateroom too, and she goes, "Oh look, round windows."
Yeah.
It's like
she has a couple of great lines on that. There's one where she says, she's talking about Dorothy and kind of explaining like what their relationship is to Gus, and she says she needs somebody like I to educate her, which is not grammatically correct. Well, and it's just very funny.
It's so funny to me. So okay, like I've been dying to ask you this question. When you finish watching the movie, are they whores?
No.
Exactly.
No.
Like, the thing is the opening number, the Just Two Little Girls from Little Rock that they sing, it's kind of a little bit like the thesis for the movie in a way. Like, they are women of no means who, like at the end, Marilyn's character Lorelai says that she's American, but both of her parents are Irish on her mother and father's side. So
yes.
Obviously, like, she's maybe like a first generation American and her parents are Irish immigrants. They're not rich,
Sure, yeah.
So she grew up in a way where she wasn't wealthy, in a time where she wasn't able to have a career or really be educated. And the best that a woman could hope for was to find somebody who could provide for her that wasn't going to be horrible to her. So like,
yes.
For anybody to get upset for women like wanting better for themselves and doing it in the way that society allows them to do it and call them whores because of like a monetary motivation, in a sense, like she was still looking for love, and she even said that she was like, it's just as easy to love a poor man as it is a rich man. Like,
yeah, it's a weird take.
Like, nobody gets upset when women are like, I only date men that are like 6 feet tall. Like, they just call them shallow. They don't call them whores.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's what she said. Well, the funny thing is, it's a weird take. It's all takes are welcome.
Yes.
Like everyone can have a take, but there are some takes that are so wrong that you just want to be like, did you watch the movie? And I understand, like, from his perspective, this is a tortured woman and he's trying to like explain, like, even in that movie, like, she doesn't have agency. But the whole point of the movie is that these two women have agency and are making decisions for themselves. And they're representing a very positive, non-toxic female relationship.
Yes, and
like,
funny enough, this movie apparently it passes the Bechdel test.
So on that level, you think this movie is going to be kind of, I went into it thinking like, oh, it's going to be like these two ditzy girls who are just trying to find love and get rich and da-da-da. But really, it's like you have Lorelai on the one hand. The movie kind of paints her as a little shallow. And she kind of doesn't dissuade that idea for most of the movie. She's just kind of like, well, what's wrong with wanting to marry a rich guy? And so you're like,
and
okay, so
she doesn't care if anybody thinks she's shallow.
Yes, exactly. And then Dorothy, on the other hand, is, first of all, that character is not Lorelai. So she's trying to find somebody who she really loves
Mhm.
and wants to, spend the rest of her life with. And Lorelai's whole point is like, well, my thing is like, you want a man who can support you. And if you're with a poor guy, you're just thinking about like, he's
All
not
the
going to be
money
able to
that you
support
don't
you.
have.
Exactly. So her logic, it's like, oh, okay.
Well, and
then
also Dorothy kind of like when the detective first sits down and is kind of pretending, that he has a little bit of money, because in his mind he thinks they're just both gold diggers. And he
yes.
also like misinterprets a lot of situations and already has some like bias towards them. Like when he comes out and sees her looking through the book, he thinks they're both looking for their next like big fish or whatever.
Exactly.
And that's not what was happening. And so
she
like,
calls him out. He's basically like, oh, I'm pretty rich. And she's like, oh my God, you're one of those
what's funny
guys.
is she was like, in her world, like on Dorothy's end of it, if somebody was like maybe nice, and she would like not date them in spite, or like for out of spite for them having money. So she's
Yes.
kind of like on that. It's like, okay, well, what's wrong? Like it's just funny to see kind of both sides of that, and to see like how Lorelai seemingly just was like thinking and planning more about her future and trying to
Yes.
be practical.
That's the punchline at the end of the movie. Lorelai basically says what you're saying, which is,
Mhm.
why would you, a man's not going to marry a woman he doesn't find attractive, and if he does, then he might not be happy. Exactly. So she basically, it's like the whole movie you're thinking, oh, Lorelai's kind of shallow, and then kind of the message at the end of the movie is like, well, hold on a second, like take a look at yourself, or think about yourself before starting to judge somebody else, and
Well,
take
and
a look at
also
yourself.
Lorelai even brings up the point of like, she does love Gus. Like, yeah, she's interested in him. He's in her dating pool based off of her list of considerations that like
Yes.
everybody makes their own list of considerations when they're looking for somebody that they want to be a partner. He fits in to that category. She actually likes him. If like she didn't like him, she wouldn't be with him just because he was wealthy.
Exactly. It's a big component for her. And she explains to the dad, because the dad hates her. And she finally at the end is basically
he calls
like,
her
well,
a blonde man trap.
yes, which is great.
I love
which
it.
is great.
Oh my God. He says like, he calls his son a jackass. Like he says the funniest things.
He's a great dad. Great dad. But at the end, she basically says, if you had a daughter, wouldn't you want what's best for her? And what's best is having a man who can take care of you. And it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. So it is, it's the
He's
movie.
like, hey, you're pretty smart. They said you were stupid. That doesn't sound so stupid to me.
Right. And it's true. The movie kind of sets you up to think of her as kind of silly and dumb. And it's not like you're just saying like, oh, this idiot. Like, she's conniving, and you kind of are like, oh no, she's smarter than people think. But then at the end, and she does silly things, but by the end it's like, well, yeah, she has her own agency. She knows what she's doing.
And she is smart. Like, and she says, I can be smart when things are important. And like the plan that like, okay, so when all the guys are paying the maitre d' some money so they can sit at the ladies' table, which I also love, just the movie trope of like beautiful women walking in a room and the record like or like the
I know,
musicians
everyone's like, oh, what?
But honestly, like, how phenomenal did they look?
I know, they're great.
Oh, just absolutely stunning. That orange dress on her and her blonde. Oh my God, she's absolutely gorgeous. But she like isn't gonna come to dinner because she wants Henry Spofford III to sit at their table, and she tells the maitre d' like, well, if you can't make that happen, I'm not gonna come out of my cabin, not even once. Like she's very smart. She has street smarts. Like she knows how to do what she needs to do to exist in the world that she lives in.
And by the way, as far as like runaway favorite character,
oh my God, Henry Spofford III.
Henry Spofford III. And let me look up the actor's name. I need to know, what is this kid's name?
He just
George
died
Winslow
recently.
Did he really?
In
my God.
2015 or 2016, I think, when I was looking him up.
Yeah, 2015. He was 69. But man, That
Ugh.
kid was so freaking funny.
He had
like,
a bunch of lines that I really, really
yes,
liked.
great lines. Well, first he says, what is it? She gets
I'm
stuck in
old
the
enough to appreciate a good-looking girl when I see one.
Yes,
When
that line was
Dorothy
great.
asks how old he is, when he
And then
sits down at the table and he goes, and I intend to be at every dinner.
That's it. The one where he's like, I intend to be at every meal. And then when he's helping her, she's stuck in the porthole.
Yeah.
And he's like, the first reason I like you is da-da-da, but the
He
second
says
reason
the
is you've
first
got a
reason is I'm too young to go to jail.
Right.
And then the second, you say
He says, you've got a lot of animal magnetism, which is so
Yes.
funny. And then there's the whole comedic bit where he hides, he
Oh my
hides
God,
under
I
the
love that.
coat.
Such a flowery little hand.
Yes, and the guy kisses his hand. Stop that. Like, this kid is so funny. And literally the kid just,
Laryngitis.
he just deadpans the whole
Oh,
time. And you could
he's so
almost be
good.
like, is this kid not like an actor? But it's so good that it's like,
He's
I
so
don't want
good.
him to be an actor. I want him to
And
just be this.
and I like also after Piggy runs off to go get her some brandy, and he goes, "Can't you see his intentions are not honorable?"
Yeah. This kid is great. One of the big complaints I have is that this kid does not come back in the third act.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
I desperately wanted him to somehow be involved at the
Yes,
end.
I would watch just a whole entire movie of him, like just
Yes.
his business on the boat and him talking to maybe his valet about this beautiful woman Dorothy that he sat next to. He's just out there killing it.
I completely agree. But the movie is interesting in that you have this relationship between these two women that is like, it's a buddy movie, but with
Mhm.
women in the roles, which I mean, certainly at this point in time, I don't think was happening all that often. Usually,
No,
and
certainly not.
even now, I mean, like Some Like It Hot is very much it's a buddy comedy with these two guys, and
Mhm.
also a gender swap comedy and all of these
Mhm.
things. But like, certainly it couldn't have been the norm for the main team up to be these two women kind of
Oh
leading the
yeah.
charge.
Well, and even in the 7-Year Itch, Marilyn Monroe's character didn't even have a name.
Yeah, that's right.
You know? Like,
Right.
so
And that movie
that
really, I mean, it's about
and
kind of
that's one
objectification of her.
But that's what's funny too. That's one of the qualifications to pass the Bechdel test is there has to be at least 2 women who have names. Like, which is so funny that has to be
I
specified.
love
But it's
that.
like filmmakers did not care about naming waitress. Like,
That's great. I love that so much. I completely
Yeah.
forgot that she didn't have a name. It makes sense for that movie too.
For that movie,
because-
it makes perfect sense. 'Cause
Yes, but-
he didn't ask her once. He doesn't care about her. Like he
Right.
just yeah.
I almost wish we had a little bit more time with them before, like, because we don't get to know them that well. We kind
No.
of get to know them through the events of this film, where they're
Mhm.
both very much kind of we get to know Lorelai better, and I think a lot of that just comes from Monroe's performance. I think a
Yeah.
lot of maybe the issues I had with the characters really come down to like Jane Russell's character isn't as interesting because she's not Marilyn Monroe, and
Well,
that's it.
also because like with Jane Russell, I feel like she's so obviously she plays it, straighter to some degree, but like she's so jaded and cynical and you don't really like find out why necessarily. You don't really get into like why she is the way she is. But like with Marilyn, her character, I really feel like the whole time you're watching it, you're like, of course she's this way. She's absolutely beautiful. Men are objectifying her left and right. Like, why
Yes.
wouldn't she do something to better her life? Like, it makes perfect sense. And she's just so charming and so funny. Like, when
Yes.
she tries on Lady Beekman's tiara and she goes, I just love finding new places to wear diamonds.
Right.
Like, I just.
And she thinks
Ah.
it's a necklace at first, like she
Yeah.
doesn't understand
How do you
that
put
it's
it on?
right. And she's like, "Oh, you think I'm silly or something? It goes on
Yeah.
your head."
Oh, you
but
think I was born yesterday?
Right, yes.
It's like
So-
sometimes I wonder.
it's really, really interesting that like I feel like this movie, maybe where it doesn't succeed as much as something like Some Like It Hot or even The 7-Year Itch, is because like the relationship is good and the performances are good. And it's not like I need more backstory or some more like, character development. But you're right. You don't really understand why Dorothy is so jaded. You
Yeah,
don't really
because
find
she
out.
also seems to like, I mean, she's a showgirl. She is talented. I'm sure she has men falling all over herself. I mean, she's constantly talking about how like she only dates like poor guys. But again, that seems like she's like on this high horse where she's like, I'm not just going to date a rich guy. It's like, well, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And then, she meets Malone and
Yeah.
he's the private detective and he falls for her. But I also, he's kind of like, oh, well, you're the most attractive lady here. And that's why I came to talk to you. And it's like, really, though?
Yeah, I mean, like,
yeah, she
but
is.
the thing
But
is
like,
maybe that is what the gentlemen prefer blondes thing is. Again, like, I don't understand the title because they're saying
yeah,
like it doesn't. I guess Malone's not a gentleman, so he prefers the brunette. Like,
right. Yeah, it
and I
doesn't make
kind of
much
feel like
sense.
if he wasn't hired to like be a sleuth on Marilyn Monroe and he just saw that woman out and about, I guarantee you he would think she was smoking hot. Like there's
Right.
no
Yeah.
way.
Oh, totally. But it's also like, it's not something where Jane Russell or the character of Dorothy has
Mm-mm.
some sort of edge over Monroe as far as like charm or humor. Like she's kind of like biting and sarcastic, but her one-liners don't hit as hard as Marilyn's do.
Because she's performing them. She does a lot of like
Yes.
meh,
Yeah, exactly.
meh.
She's kind of like, hey, wow, what do you say to
Ah,
that?
what do you?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it
very
is
his
that
girl
vibe.
Friday.
And I think
Yeah.
maybe it really does come down to, because I was really like, I was like, I like her and she's attractive and I don't want to like take anything away from her. But I think you're right. Just Monroe's magnetism is so strong and her screen presence is just so overpowering. And
Yeah.
it's not like it's one of those things where it's not like it doesn't feel competitive between the two. I think,
No,
and
but
apparently they
what's
got along
funny,
really well.
they did get along really well, and it was their only film together. And I have a feeling because this was a box office like smash. Like this
Yeah.
was huge. It was the highest grossing film of the year, like huge. So why wouldn't you put these two in a film together again? And I kind of feel like, and I'm just speculating on this, but if I were Jane Russell, I would probably not want to go into another film with Marilyn Monroe now that she has like skyrocketed because
Right.
firstly, you're not going to be getting paid as much as she is or like whatever, but you're also not going to maybe be as focused on like and maybe she felt like she wasn't as watchable because they're side by side a lot of the
The
times and
whole
I would have to
movie,
force myself to look at Jane Russell and every time I did I just moved right back to Marilyn.
I agree. I think it definitely, maybe there could have been some, because you can't help it when you're an actor, and especially, I mean, it happens today, and certainly in the
Yeah.
50s when you're a woman and you're trying to make a career for yourself in
Yeah.
Hollywood, which is very male dominated, and you're kind of putting yourself up next to like the blonde bombshell, like
She
of
and
all
her
time.
figure is insane in
Right.
this movie. I mean, like the dresses and like the corsets and stuff and like that they wore underneath and like I both of them in their red dresses even in the opening of the film. Like Marilyn's body is just so perfect. She's a
Right.
doll. Like I mean,
Yeah.
she really is like the overly like fantasized like there's no way somebody looks like that. But that's her,
She
and it's
did.
before
Yeah.
there's like crazy photoshopping and editing and stuff. I mean, I know they did that like superimposing of the diamond over like Piggy's face, but like they didn't have special effects to like airbrush people, like
Right,
she looked
exactly.
amazing.
So it's all real, it's all natural. And again, it comes out through her talent too, which is very,
Yeah.
very natural and very just very simplistic. But I think and I'm gonna
Cause
use
she just
I'm
throws lines away, like,
yeah.
and not in like, she just like, it's so good.
Well, so the example, I use this example a lot when talking about this kind of thing, but the movie
Uh-huh.
Dumb and Dumber, When I
Oh,
talk about
sure.
Dumb and Dumber, which is like, I think a masterpiece
It
of
is.
comedy, and people are like, you know, when I'll talk about it, I'll be like, I'll say exactly that. It's a masterpiece. And people are like, oh yeah, it's great. It's just such a stupid movie though. And I'm like, no.
No, it is
That's the
not.
joke. Like, it's like Jim
Yeah.
Carrey and Jeff Daniels are just so dumb. And I'm like, no. That is the joke. And the performances,
you're dumb.
You're dumb. But the performances, like their performances in that movie are so dedicated and
So
so
good.
committed, but they're so well drawn.
Yes.
It's like you almost just don't think about it. You're like, oh, these guys are idiots. And it's like,
Yes.
no, but you don't understand like the way they're delivering these lines, and like
perfect.
there is nuance to it. As crazy as it sounds,
Yes.
there's nuance to it, and there's intelligence behind it. There's a performance there. And it's the same thing with Marilyn Monroe, where it's like you want to kind of write it off as like, oh well, she's just, you know, that's who she is, she's ditzy and da-da-da. But the way she delivers the lines and the way she like it's not just like her kind of throwing them away like you're saying. Like there's actual intelligence and thought to like the whole like the laryngitis thing, like the way like he's like, what is that your voice? She's like, oh, laryngitis, I guess. Like there's it's great
I wanted to
delivery.
see the view from up here.
Yes, exactly. And
like
she's
like perched on
it's
it.
not like, you know, the character is oblivious, but her performance is not, and it's
Right.
just so good. So you have to give the credit where credit is due. And like you said, Jane Russell, she's good, but it is a little bit more performative. And I think, you know, this is the 50s. And let me, you know, I'm just going to compare Marilyn Monroe to James Dean for a second. I don't know exactly when. I think this was probably around the time. Yeah, so Rebel Without a Cause came out in 1955, which is also, I think, when James Dean died. And James Dean's whole thing was like on paper, or, you know, not on paper, but like you look at this guy who's kind of like low key, and people are maybe thinking, oh, he's not really an actor because he doesn't have that flourish. Everything he does is so understated.
Right.
But he and Marlon Brando really pioneered this sense of like, it's not about like and everything is so big and grand. And it was more about like reality, and the reality of bringing like a performance could be understated. It didn't have to be over the top.
Like a big part of that just plays into the technology. And like, obviously cinema comes from theater, and theatrical performances were always much bigger because
and
you're
even
playing
like
out to an audience, you know, like you have to be bigger, you have to be bolder so that people can like see all of that, but you don't have to do that for the camera, and it doesn't feel real when you do that for the camera.
Yeah, and even thinking about like the silent era, and I know a lot of those actors did not succeed once sound came into play, but you think about like, you know, we have to emote and da-da-da because we have to get these emotions across. But you're right. I think what Marilyn was doing was that kind of cutting edge that James Dean and Marlon Brando are kind of like, they're the ones who are sort of praised for it. And I don't know if Marilyn Monroe is as held up, maybe because she's not as well known for her dramatic roles. I haven't seen, obviously these are the 3 Marilyn Monroe movies I've seen.
To do them.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's not,
she wanted to do that stuff, but they wouldn't let her. Like, she didn't get to pick her own films.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think despite that, I think what we're seeing from her is that the draw is that people were starting to look for something more authentic.
Well,
and
also,
whether or not it was conscious or not, I think Marilyn Monroe was speaking to that part of the audience that was being more attracted to people like James Dean.
But unfortunately for her, because this was the first like huge character where she, you know, got to do like really be the headliner in a film, and you know, she got to show her talent like this, because it was so, I feel, earnest. Like, people took that performance as like, oh, this is who she is.
Yeah.
And she got unfairly pigeonholed into this, you know, like ditzy, just blonde that, you know,
kind of
people fawn
oblivious
after. So people weren't like studios weren't allowing her to like do something that was a little more dramatic, because I think they all just thought of her as a dumb blonde, but she was not. Like, and also Lorelai, like this character, she was not dumb.
Yeah, it's like on paper, on the surface, you think like, oh, she's ditzy, she's a little oblivious, she's a little shallow, And then throughout the movie, you get to know her. And then at the end, when she kind of delivers her monologue, it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like,
And she also
this girl
says
is not as bad as we thought she was.
well, she even says like men don't like it when she's smart.
Yeah.
And she's
Right.
oh that I also love. So she said like men don't like me when I'm smart, but Gus is always he likes me for my brains. And the
Right.
dad goes, "Oh, he does not."
It's so good. It's so
yeah,
good.
but so it's just what's funny is, and it's true of that era. And I mean, even like today, there's still like equality issues with women, and like and I mean that's just like been forever, but
Right.
especially like during that time, like guys were really intimidated and still to some degree maybe are by like exceptionally smart women, and a lot of and especially at that time like you couldn't be a smart girl and be
Yeah.
like wanted in a way where you're feminine, because like being overly smart maybe wasn't a feminine trait. And I don't. It just it's interesting because she's not dumb, but she's being dumb because that's what everyone wants her to be. So that
Right. And she's playing with it, and she's completely leaning into it. But
yeah,
she does like she'll make little comments to Dorothy, like kind of like, I know what I'm doing. Like she'll kind of the
oh
facade
my
will drop a
gosh,
little bit, and she'll say
yeah,
one of my favorite lines is at the end, I think, when the private detective is they're kind of calling him out. And the
hmm
line that Marilyn Monroe has is she's, if you have nothing more
yeah.
to say, pray, scat,
I
like
love
something
that.
like that. It's so
Yeah,
good. But like there are moments where that facade will kind of drop, and she'll kind of be very lucid and
yeah.
direct and saying something that you wouldn't necessarily peg her as saying. But
Oh, I
I,
also love their scheming to get his jacket and to get his pants off. But that's what I mean. Like Dorothy walks in the room and she's like, "Gosh, it's hot in here. I'm going to turn the heat off." And she goes, "Don't. It's for him."
yes,
Oh,
she
she's
has the
like,
whole plan.
"Wow."
Yeah,
Yeah, she's like, "Yeah, I know how to do this. What are you talking about? Like, sit
right.
down. Like, also, ours are just water, so don't make a face, Like,
Yeah.
she's walking her through how it's going to work. And then they decide that they need to get his pants, and she's like, "You want me to do this on my own?" Like,
Yes, that whole part, that whole section is so good. I love that. And then just her, like Dorothy coming over and just pouring water on his pants, like not even being subtle about it, but
oh
just
my
being like, "Oh
gosh,
my
yeah.
gosh, oh no!" And she's just pouring water on
He's
his
like, "That
pants.
wasn't water. It was vodka. Yeah,
Yeah,
do you want another?" No.
no,
That
I
actually
do.
was the way she delivered that. I loved. I thought that was
Yes,
hilarious.
that scene
Yeah.
was really, really great.
Yeah.
I think it I understand the reasoning behind casting Jane Russell. I think maybe if her performance had been a little bit more natural, it would have worked. Like Marilyn Monroe is Jim Carrey, and you need a Jeff Daniels in the opposite role,
Yeah,
and
but
she's not
also
quite Jeff Daniels.
of course, but also think of again the time period. Like the way Jane Russell is acting, you're still on that cusp of
Yeah,
film actors where a lot of films have a lot of that like meh, see, like and a lot of the jokes it's like the I'm a newsie, like there's
yeah,
still that kind of stuff going on, and it's really I mean the tail end of that about and
yeah.
like Marilyn's style is so new and like so
It
I don't
feels
think
it feels more modern in a
yes.
way.
Which
It's
maybe
still
is why her films hold up and her performances hold up so well is because a
yeah,
lot of her performance it's timeless because it feels so
absolutely.
real.
Yeah, and I think I mean that's stood out, and I think like honestly I think I enjoyed, I mean Some Like It Hot is definitely my favorite. I
Okay,
enjoyed the
yeah.
7 Year Itch a little bit more than this, and
You did?
yeah, and I think the reason is
The
specifically
musical?
because I think, well, I think part of this movie, part of the issue is the musical segments feel so unmusical,
Mhm.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense. But
Yeah.
also, I think as far as what the focus is and what the relationships are, like 7 Year Itch, the guy who's playing the actor opposite her
Mhm.
is kind of on her level. Like it works. Some Like It Hot is very similar. Like the
Yes.
performers are just great, and everyone is on the level.
Yes.
And they partly because of just the completely outlandish concept of like these guys dressing up as women. It's just larger than life, which is a good.
Oh, and the voices, they're so
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
Yeah.
It works well, and she plays really great off of that. I think it just works better, like the comedy works better, and then just as like whatever the concepts for those movies are and the stories and the characters, the execution's a little bit stronger than Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And I think some of that has to do with Howard Hawks kind of being half invested in the movie and not really caring. I think that does show in the direction a little bit, and especially
Yeah.
the musical numbers. But and overall, again, I think Jane Russell, she's good, but it doesn't quite hold up. I think the other performances are good too. And again, I think George Winslow, Henry Spofford III,
He
is the
is a
best.
star.
He should have been in the whole movie.
He deserves a star on
He
the Walk of
deserved to be.
Fame.
Yes, he does. And
Honestly.
I wish he had been in it more. And
I love
think
how deep his voice was too. It was absolutely
it's so
hysterical.
good. Like Marilyn Monroe, it's almost like that sense of humor is a little ahead of its time.
Yes.
It's kind of like, you think like the
there were
Norm,
some
the Norm
goofy,
Macdonald
campy
thing.
moments. Yeah.
Yes, it's like it kind of just like that deadpan sort of monotone delivery.
Oh,
It's
it was
so
so
good.
good.
But
I love when she got stuck in that porthole, and
Yes.
but the way she measured the hole to her hips to see
Yes.
if she was fit.
Yes, that part is great too. I think it's just the movie is a little. It's just I think because Jane Russell's humor and the writing for her is just not on par with
Yeah.
Marilyn's performance, it kind of drags the movie down a little bit. Not completely, but like if I'm nitpicking, I think
Oh, I
I
understand.
want the zaniness of Some Like It Hot and the zaniness of 7 Year Itch kind of kept me invested throughout, whereas this
Yeah.
was a little bit more kind of off and on, and then like the musical numbers feel a little not drab, but the Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend is great. It's the best musical number
It
in
is
the
so
movie.
good. Like I every time I watch this movie, I just love the costumes, and I love the opening of that where there's all the women in those big pink dresses and the men are dancing with them and spinning them around, and then it comes on to her and she's just in this absolutely gorgeous, one of her most iconic looks for like
Yes, exactly.
amazing.
But it's also fun. Like, I mean, the choreography and like her just going, no, 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 and
Well,
slapping
that's
everybody.
actually not her voice.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, she sings the song, but the operatic moment at the beginning and the very, very last line, the very, very high girl's best friend, those are not her, but everything
Right.
else is her.
Which is but it's still great. It's like as far as like there hasn't been much creativity or wit to the choreography up to this point. So to have that moment at the very end of the movie, it was like, oh yeah, I understand why this is iconic and why people kind of think about this moment in particular when they're talking about this movie. It definitely was a standout for me.
She's so amazing, and you really cannot take your eyes off of her. And I love when in the courtroom scene, and that's the other thing is like this movie is like it has a bunch of, you're like, well, I didn't think we'd end up here, they're in night court.
Right. Well,
French
so
night
speaking
court.
just to give a little bit more love to Jane Russell, who deserves a little more love,
Yes.
her impression of Marilyn Monroe
that was the
is
best.
gold. It's on
Absolutely. And somebody beautiful as I.
point. Yes. She
smart
has it
as I.
down. Yeah, she has it down
so
to a T.
good.
She's great at that moment. And I
thank you ever so much.
Yeah, I wish she'd been a little bit looser in the rest of her performance. And it's kind of,
wish that like at the beginning when they were, like dancing and like we're, they're showgirls together or whatever. I kind of wish a little bit that there had been something in there like where we find out that Dorothy is maybe say divorced. Or she's going through something where
or down on her. She just went through like a real bad breakup or something.
Yeah, or her husband like cheated on or something. I don't know. And and then you would understand like her kind of snarky like stuff a little bit more. And I don't know. It would feel a little.
It's weird because she is kind of like she's sort of gung ho and like, yes, I want to like hang out with all these men and like hook up and stuff like that. So she's very like
She
game
just wants to have
for
fun.
that.
She's
Yeah, she
on
wants to have fun.
vacation.
But I think you're right. I think it would have made more sense if maybe that's how she starts the movie. Like, I don't
Yeah.
care anymore. Like, monogamy is not for me, clearly. But then,
Yes.
like, despite herself, she falls for Malone.
Right, and
then
that would
kind
be
of
at least an interesting arc for her, because
exactly,
otherwise she's just kind of there, and it's
exactly
not adding to how
and then
great Marilyn is.
and when you add Marilyn Monroe to the mix, and it's just so much more compelling, you lose something there, and it makes
Yeah.
it is kind of like telling that I think her most the best performance is when she's pretending to be Marilyn. It is
Yeah.
kind of telling that that's the best part.
Yeah,
but
it's
I
like
do like
pairing like champagne with like a craft single. Like, sure,
Yes.
it's cheese, but like
Yeah.
we have champagne. Like, bring out
Right.
some fancy cheese.
Exactly. And as far as the other thing I thought was funny is that when she's doing her whole number by the pool and she gets knocked in, apparently that was
Oh,
not
it
intentional.
wasn't?
No. So
That's
she got knocked in
great.
by accident, and then Howard Hawks, who apparently didn't contribute much to this movie,
No.
but did contribute, he was like, no, we're keeping that in, and just have the next shot be her getting out of the pool and singing.
Oh, I bet you he just hated working on this film. And I bet you he thought, he was like, this is going to be so stupid. And then it
Right.
was like a total smash. And like even in one of the interviews that I read that he wrote, or somebody asked him a question about, I guess, musicals or something. He goes, oh yeah, I did this musical one time. It's called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Like, it was like nothing. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? I did this musical. I don't know.
Yeah, or it's called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes or something.
Yeah, like,
I don't know.
I
It's
don't
like this
know.
iconic movie that's beloved and a
that
classic.
made a crazy
Yeah.
amount of money. And
Well, he also, and this is something that you hear like from Billy Wilder and other, like Marilyn Monroe was apparently difficult to work with, in that she was very like, I want to do it again and again and again. And they just like, I think part of it is just like the general dismissiveness of like, shut up, I'm the
Mhm.
director, you're a woman, let me do my thing. And I know that he kind of was like annoyed with her during the production. So
I read that too, but I read a thing where he said she was professional and she did show up on time and she was very polite.
Good. Well, I'm glad he said something nice about her, because it
Yeah.
feels like so much of what he had to say was kind of just like disparaging and like, yeah, whatever, that dumb musical movie where I didn't have time to direct the musical
whores.
numbers. Yeah, just a couple of whores.
Like,
but
what?
like,
I
yeah.
cannot believe that somebody watched that movie and thought, these whores. Like,
I
neither
think
of them do anything like for pay.
like I said, it's an odd way to if you're trying to make the point that like Marilyn Monroe was a tortured soul, which absolutely she was, it's weird to then like make this very depressing movie about her.
Ugh.
That's just despairing and miserable.
Yes.
But then to also like attack people for being like, but she wasn't like that. Like that wasn't her only shade. Like she was like
Yeah.
multifaceted, and then to like attack a beloved movie and
Oh my
to say that
But
again.
it also is
Andrew
just-
Dominic, look, I know you and Nick Cave are best friends, so if you want to introduce me to Nick Cave, I would be delighted, and I have nothing but respect for the work you've done with him. But again, yeah, not
But
so
it's
thrilled.
I just think it's so funny, and this movie like does make such a good point with like Marilyn's monologues, just about saying like, why is it wrong for me to want good for myself?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's just like you miss the movie doesn't, it's not subtle about it. Like
No.
she has a whole monologue where she says, this is how I feel and this is why
Mhm.
it's okay. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, that makes sense. Like,
And
and it's not
also-
like it's not a huge thing. You don't have to dig beneath the surface. She flat
No.
out says it.
Yeah, and like she clearly has her pick of men. Like, I mean, she really does. Like, she could be with just about anybody, and like you see that all the time. Like when she walks in a room, people like can't catch their breath, you know? Like,
yeah, and
or-
she's having her fun, of course, but like
Yes.
she ends up with the guy she's
that she wanted
engaged
to
to.
be with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
she only wanted him. She wasn't interested in anybody else, and she was only nice to Piggy because he had diamonds and she was trying to
Yes.
get a diamond tiara. And I also love that in just the Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend song, like, again, it's brought up, like, men that want her and stuff are not giving her the life that they're promising her, and they make her all these promises, and then they end up just going to their wives, and it's like, oh,
Right.
well, you're married, okay, well, at least I got a bracelet out of this that I could sell if I need to, like, what else? I just get like some bad memories from a guy, like, that stinks. Let me at least get a bracelet out of it. I mean, like, it is
Yes.
shallow and materialistic, but you also have to think about the time, like, she couldn't provide that life for herself.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it is it's a very, very weird and misguided take on the movie.
Mhm.
And at the same time, looking at a lot of female critics have kind of said, like, you know what, this is really very ahead of its time.
It
And
passes the
sometimes,
Bechdel test.
well, yes, exactly. And sometimes I'll read this stuff and I'm like, you're digging a little deep into this. But in this
Yeah.
case, I think it's spot on. Like, I think the movie does feel like very modern. It feels like
Mhm.
very cool that these two women who are very different but have this great friendship and are both kind of like acting of their own accord and have their own agency, which is why it was weird to go into this with Andrew Dominik's comment in my mind and kind of feeling like like that just feels like a low blow to
Yeah.
lodge at Marilyn and this movie. So it's
Yeah.
weird.
And it would be like totally different if the story was different, or if, there was like other stuff going on, but it's like that was not the case. So I don't know how you
Definitely
take
not.
that
This
away.
this is not the movie to lodge those complaints at.
Yeah,
for
like
sure.
say that on Moulin Rouge. Like, sure, those ladies were whores. Like, they're
Or Pretty Woman, like
there
Julia
you
Roberts. She
go.
was a whore in that movie.
Beloved,
With the
absolutely
heart of
beloved
gold.
whores.
Yes, exactly. So whatever.
Here on this podcast, we love whores.
We do. We want to give them a shout out, thank them for all the work they do,
Yeah.
making the world a better place.
But I'm really glad that I got to introduce you to another Marilyn film, and this is
Me too.
This is one of the ones where I truly feel like she has one of her better performances because, like I said, like, she's not on all the pills yet, and
Yes, exactly.
she's not as beaten down by Hollywood as
a little bit
she
more
will be.
Lucid and a little bit
Yes.
more like on top of her game and doing it for a
Definitely.
fraction of the price
Ugh.
that Jane
I
Russell
know, and
was.
that's the other thing too. Isn't it funny just how ironic it is that her character is like all about the money, but in
Yeah.
real life she gets peanuts?
Yes, it is. It is nuts and just sad, really. I mean, it
Yeah.
is. It just sucks. I was reading a little bit more, just kind of like every time we do one of these, I'll like go and read a little bit more about Marilyn Monroe's life, and it's just like every time I'm like, this is awful, like just very, very sad.
It's
Yeah,
sad
you read
that
like
she died when she did and as young as she was, because I know
Yeah.
I've said it before, but I think she would be a huge advocate for women's rights, and
Yeah.
like
if she had made it, like she would have really, I think, pioneered and been a great, kind of like Carrie Fisher kind of with Leia.
Mhm.
She was very, very popular, very well known, and then she, like, you learn more about her as a human being and a
Yeah.
person, and you're like, oh, she's a
Oh.
badass, like this is
Yeah.
great, like she's
Mhm.
funny, but she's very like cutting, and she's very pointed and thoughtful, and like very, very understanding about the politics of Hollywood and how things
Yeah.
work. And I think Marilyn would have been very similar.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people don't give Marilyn enough credit just for, like, yeah, she was taken advantage of, but I mean, she is the reason, like, she's so talented. She's
Yeah.
the reason that she got to where she was and she became the icon she was, and unfortunately, she did get taken advantage of, and
Yeah.
she had some hard marriages, and like, she's a survivor of domestic abuse, and
Yeah.
there's a lot that people don't give her enough credit for what a strong and, like, amazing and smart person she was.
Hollywood it is gross. It can be very, very
I
gross. And it's
know.
like, especially in this, like it was no holds barred, like completely Wild West. It's not like it's much
Yeah.
better today, but just like in the 50s, being who
was-
she was
yeah.
and looking how she looked, it's
Ugh.
just like the worst. So
And it's
yeah,
so
it's
terrible because, like, even today, you're right, that stuff still goes on and we hear about it all the time. And it's such a shame because it's such an industry that is so beloved around the world. Like, everybody loves seeing these movies. They love
yeah.
seeing the stars, and all that stuff, and hearing about them and feeling like they get to know them a little bit. And then the behind the scenes, it's just so icky and dark, and what
Yeah.
happens to people, and uh,
It's awful. But on the
yeah,
plus side, what's crazy about this movie is despite the way she was being treated maybe behind the scenes, although I think this was a very positive experience for her.
at the
The
time, for sure.
yeah, the movie is overall its message and the story itself and the characters in it are very, very cutting edge and
Yeah,
feels very contemporary. And it's a movie, weirdly enough, and this is again why I think, like you're saying, Marilyn was so smart. The movie is basically about female empowerment
yeah,
without being like too on the nose or heavy handed, but she was able to produce these films and play these roles where
yeah.
you kind of like, it's easy to like, yeah, you dismiss it and say it's the dumb blonde role. But when you're actually taking the time to look at it and analyze it, you're saying, well, wait a second, this is actually much smarter than people are giving it credit
Right, and
for,
the
which
same
is,
with Some Like It Hot. I mean, that
yeah,
was a big female empowering film too, in the
yeah,
aspect that, like, two men are realizing how difficult it is for women, and they're
yes,
like, and I'm not even attractive. I can't
yeah.
imagine what a beautiful woman deals with on a day to day.
Exactly. And
So
Tootsie too.
I love
We've
that.
gone through, we've learned so much about men dressing as
Yeah,
women
we
to get
have.
closer to women or to further their careers.
Yeah, but
So
it's interesting that Marilyn's films, there's a lot of that kind of common theme
yeah,
in
you
there.
have to think like, you're like, this is, it's not, it can't possibly be an accident. Like, I
Yeah.
know she was not fully in control of the roles, but like the way she plays it, and even when like in Some Like It Hot where she was really out of it, apparently, like
Hmm.
she's still giving a great performance, or still
She is, but
somehow they managed.
if you watch these like one after the other, it is entirely apparent
Yes,
that she is
yes.
on her game in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and she
Yeah.
is reading lines out of drawers in
Oh,
in Some Like It
oh.
Hot.
Well, is there anything else about Gentlemen Prefer Blondes that we haven't touched on that you think we need to mention?
I just think it's great. I love all of her costumes. I love that purple
Costumes are
outfit
great.
she's wearing when she gets to see the tiara. I love that orange dress she has. The red costumes at the beginning. I mean, she just looks absolutely fantastic. The pink dress is forever iconic. Like, just phenomenal. And Dorothy Jane Russell is also wonderful, and I feel like were she not acting next to Marilyn, her performance would seem much better.
Yes, agreed. So well, this is great. Thank you for helping me see the light.
Well, you're
And
welcome. I'm
finally,
always down to show you a Marilyn film.
you're always down to show me the light, and
Yes.
particularly as it is related to Marilyn
Yeah.
Monroe and the beautiful light that she was.
Yeah.
Um,
So how much animal magnetism would you say that this movie has?
is that our rating? I love. Okay, so
I think that's good.
on it? I think that's perfect. I was gonna
Yeah.
just do diamonds, so yours is
Oh,
way
yeah,
better.
diamonds is good.
No, I like animal magnetism
Yeah.
better. I would say I give this one 3.5 on a scale from 1 to 5. I think
Okay.
it's really good. It's not my favorite Marilyn Monroe movie, but I think she's great in it, and she's definitely the reason to watch it. And I think it's one of those movies that it's just fun to watch. You can just put it on and you'll have a good time. And especially, I think part of the reason, I think it loses a little animal magnetism when you get rid of George Winslow and
Yeah.
Henry Spofford III. I think you needed him in the movie
Also, just
in the third
anytime
act.
Marilyn's not on the screen, I'm like, bring her back.
That's true. I think I agree with you. I think that's less apparent maybe in something like Some Like It Hot.
Yes.
But here
And
you definitely feel
you want her on screen all the time. And I
agreed.
feel like that's sometimes with the Jane Russell like scenes where they're side by side. I'm like, that's great. Marilyn's here. I'll just look at her the whole time.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, what would you give it?
I'm gonna say a 4.
Okay, great.
Because it's one of those movies I could watch anytime. You're right about some of the songs, like isn't anybody here for love? I do
Yeah.
end up fast forwarding through that when I watch that now.
Right. But it is great to see her get knocked into the swimming pool.
Yeah,
Not because I don't
that's
like
the
her.
end of it, so I'll fast forward it to that
But
point
all the way
and
to
then
the end,
get to
yes.
see that.
It's not because I want to see her knocked into a swimming pool. It's just funny
It's a real
that was an
reaction,
accident. Yes.
But it's also a real reaction, so it feels like a better performance for you.
It's not.
That's why you like it.
It's not as staged. You're right.
Yeah,
you're
like,
it's
wow,
a natural,
look at
organic
that.
moment. Yes.
Yeah.
She was very naturally, just completely natural the way she fell into the pool.
And I'll just say again, there's just watching the film, it's just such it's eye candy. Like so much of the costuming and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's so colorful.
It's so beautiful. It's so bright. It's so vibrant, and the ladies look absolutely lovely.
They do. You're right. You're right. Good, solid.
So you're upping your score?
No. I will think about it. I'll think about it, and we'll return here to discuss it at a later time. All right. Well, Carley, tell all the wonderful people at home where they can find you, your amazing work, what you're doing, because you're doing makeup and all kinds of cool stuff, and in actual real life movies.
That's right. So you can find me on Instagram. That's the only thing I have, at Carley Does Makeup. CARLEY.
Good for you. Stay away from the others. You don't need anything else.
Yeah, I did make a Twitter account, but I don't use it. I only used it one time to suggest a movie for this podcast that I listened to because I wanted them to cover it, and that's the only post I've ever done.
Great. Keep it that way. But go, I interrupted you. What's your handle?
Oh yeah, Carley, CARLEY, Does Makeup.
And I am at Shawn Dorman on Twitter. I am there. I don't use it as much. You can also find me. I know. Are you booing because I don't use it?
No,
because
of Twitter.
Twitter, yeah. Boo Twitter. I am at Shawn Dorman on Instagram, and I'm Shawn Dorman 05 on Letterboxd. Carley, you've got to get on Letterboxd because
what's Letterboxd?
It's basically social media, but for movies. You log the movies you watch. You can rate them. You can review them, and really, they should be paying me for.
Ooh, that actually sounds like a fun one.
It is really fun. And you can rank, you can create lists for yourself. So if you wanted to, you could create a ranking for Marilyn Monroe movies. And you can say, just get all her movies, add them to the list, and arrange them how you want them to be.
I'm going to do that.
Definitely do that. And then you can add me, Shawn Dorman 05, as a friend, and I'll like all your reviews. You can see all my ratings, and sometimes I will write reviews when I'm feeling particularly zesty.
Ooh, spicy.
Spicy, exactly.
Yeah.
So definitely jump on that, and thank you, Letterboxd, for not promoting, not endorsing, or funding any of my episodes, despite all the amazing work I've done recruiting people on Letterboxd for you. I'm not bitter about it. I'm not bitter at all. No.
You know what? You need to be selfless with your endorsements.
I think you're right. I'm leaning a little bit to Jane Russell, and I need to be more Marilyn Monroe.
Well, also, I think it only goes to speak how much you like it if you're still continuing to endorse it and you're still bitter about the
You are absolutely
So if anything, that is kind of a rave review. Yeah,
honestly.
Wow.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I don't think you're threatening them. If anything, they're like, yes, let's not pay him because
he's doing great.
He's
doing great, and we're still getting the business. We're reaping the rewards.
People love his rage.
When you're back on Missing Frames, you can tell everybody what your Letterboxd.
Oh yes, okay. Is. Ooh, fun.
It'll be good. It'll be good. More incentive to have you back on. We have episodes that we need to do that we will do.
We will. Yes.
We will. Yes. They will happen.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, do we?
Boy.
We have some fun stuff coming for you. But Carley, always lovely to have you on. Chat about movies.
Thank you so much, friend.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you everyone for listening. We will see you at the movies.
Best friend.